Today we're here with our very own agent owner, our land expert. He doesn't figure out to call that, but he is. There you see. Millard Smith, and we have with us Tim Coyle. Tim is a retired Vacant employee who has his own company now that's doing soil testing and different things like that. His company is Yellow Gold. So Tim and Millard are going to talk to us today about vacant land and everything you need to know about selling vacant land. So Millard, I'm going to turn it over to you and Tim.
Well, before we get started, Liz wanted me to go over some things that some of the agents are doing wrong in the agreement to buy and sell general use of lots and land. And number 4 under the conveyance, she was talking about, I don't know why she underlined this one, about the 5-day automatic extension. I presume what she's talking about is if it's no fault of either party, the buyer or the seller, and say, for example, they're waiting on a survey or they're waiting on an appraisal or something, there's an automatic extension in there.
The reason I wanted it mentioned in there is because that's already written in the contract. This is the general contract usually used for lots and acres. And in the financing contract that you guys are familiar with, you have to put the number of days in there. But in this contract, you don't have a choice. It's already in there. That's why I wanted to put that in.
You extend that?
I'm sorry?
You extend that?
Can you extend it? You can put it in the addendum, or you can strike through it and put another date.
Yes, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and have it like initial it. If you strike through it, you're traditional. If you want to put 10 days, you can strike through the 5 and put 10 and have everybody initial it. Quite honestly, 5 days should be enough.
And also under number 16, where it says well, septic, water line, sewer availability. This paragraph, when you read it, it's pretty catchy because what they're saying is the seller represents that the property is connected to. Well, if it's raw land, it's certainly not already connected to a septic tank or a well or anything. What I do is I'll scratch through that and I'll put the septic and well, and then I'll put is available, or I'll put in there DHEC permit only. I'll put something underneath that to where they have to initial it, because I'm not going to check that it is connected, because then they can come back and say, well, there was a well or a septic tank we thought was already on the property.
Even with selling subdivision lots, you need to be careful of that.
Even on subdivision lots, it's not necessarily connected. The builder has to apply for his tax fee when he gets his building permit. And for example, it's like $2,500 for a water tap fee. Well, it's available there, but it's not already to the property because the tap may not have been paid. So that's something that you need to be careful of on this. Another one is
So roll you know the tap fee is paid or not.
well, it's up to the seller to let you know whether it's been paid or not, or you take care of that during your due diligence by calling and checking and finding out.
Who do you call?
If it's in the city of Mount Pleasant, you call the city of Mount Pleasant. You call CPW, for example, for the water. It's in Charleston County, you can still give them the tax map number or the street address and they can tell you. Chances are the tap fee has not been paid. The impact fee would have been paid, but not the tap fee. Because the builders normally pay the tap fee when they get their building permit. Because you don't know where to buy it to, because where's the house going to be placed on the lot?
Now, how much is impact fee?
Depending on the municipality, it's about $5,600 for water and sewer per lot.
Is that impact fee?
No, that's impact fee that the developer pays to do a subdivision before he can before he can start breaking ground to start putting the roads and the infrastructure in the subdivision. That's what he paid up front. So you can imagine how that can build up. In Hollywood, for example, Hollywood wants it themselves rather than just the county getting it. So they've added $2,000 onto it. So if you were to go and do another subdivision like Stone Up area in the town of Hollywood, it would be $7,600 a lot. It's a little out of hand. And part of the reason we're having this road problem, traffic problem right now, is our municipalities are not spending that impact money where they're supposed to, which is supposed to be for keeping up the roads and building new highways and that type of thing. They're putting it in their general fund and spending the money. So get in touch with them and raise Cain about it. We're getting rid of some of this traffic. What's this other one? Number 14, she said on the building permit, the contract is or is not contingent upon the buyer's ability to acquire all required licenses and permits from the appropriate authorities to build on the property. Unless somebody's already got their plans drawn up, and Lisa and I are going through some of that right now on a piece of property, then a seller's not going to wait for them to go ahead and get their permits. So I would just put is not contingent on them being to protect you and yourself. So now it's going to run into a situation where, like hers, right now, he has no plans, but he wants to be sure that he can put a swimming pool in the backyard because it's on a golf course. Well, it's one of those, we really don't know how to handle it at this point. We're waiting for the covenants and restrictions, and then we're going to try to put it in an addendum to solve the guy for 90 days to get it approved.
So that's to protect the seller. What about the buyer? If we have the buyer, then we want.
Well, if you have the buyer, then
we want to try to make.
Then you got to try to do what we're in the same situation, put it in an addendum, try to stall them long enough to be able to get the building permit. But you're not going to get a building permit if they don't have their plans. And then you just need to tell your buyer that. How are you going to get a building permit if you don't have your plans ready to submit?
The plans, architectural plans certified by a, yeah.
Do you have to have a contractor, general contractor, or builder identified when you apply for the permits?
Oh, yeah.
So all that's got to be identified too, once you have the plans.
Well, the contractor's one that's going to go down and pull the permit.
I can pull the permit. You can pull the permit. Yeah, we can go
If
online.
you're building your own house.
Yeah, we can go online and we can buy a set of plans for a house, essentially approved and stamped. Do I have to identify who the contractor's going to be when I pull the permit?
I think you do, in that place.
Well, you think you can what? Build your
I
own
think you
house?
have to have a builder, don't you?
You absolutely have to have a builder. You also have to have an engineer and an architect seal on it now in the town of Mount Pleasant.
And it needs to be a local engineer too, maybe a local architect. Because things are different here than they are in Alabama or Georgia, whatever.
So having plans of the house, I have to identify the entire building process.
I'll just give it to the builder, let the builder go down and take care of it, take the stress off, take the liability off of you.
I'm out in Dorchester County, you still have people building on homes in Dorchester County.
Okay, well, in Charleston County, they were having trouble with someone like me going in and buying a lot, building a house as if it was my own, and then I would flip it. And in the early 2000s. So now, they actually put it on the deed. If you don't actually move in that house and live in it for 2 years, it actually goes on that deed that you built it as a non-licensed contractor, subbing out to a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber. Another one, rollback taxes. This paragraph says the parties agree that the seller or the buyer shall pay rollback taxes when determined to build. Rollback taxes only apply if the zoning is being changed. So, or the usage. If they're not changing the zoning on the property, then there are no rollback taxes, and because they probably were paid at the time the property was developed. And the county, what they can do is, if you go in and we'll change the zoning from residential to a commercial zoning, it improved the value of the property, so the county can go back 5 years on reassessing what the property taxes were on that. They can go back 5 years on that piece of property.
But if it's 2 blocks on there, one of them needs to be checked.
So,
And it's either buyer or seller. So you gotta check one of them.
buyer or seller, so if the zoning is not being changed, you're safe by not scaring your buyer by putting seller, because the other agent, the listing agent at that point could explain it to that there's not going to be any rollback taxes.
So if I have a client that has 5 acres of land, and it was zoned, the city has it marked as many as 24 units. Building with 24 units could be put on that property, it's private residential. She wants to actually subdivide land. It's a piece of land. Is what she's intending to do. So she went back in there to rezone, there would be rollback taxes, and she would have.
If she rezoned it, of course, you just said it was already zoned for 24 units, which means when she breaks it up, she's gonna be paying impact fees, but she's not gonna be paying rollback taxes.
If it was not zoned for the 24 units or whatever, then that rollback would come in.
Then the rollback would come in, correct?
She would have to pay that.
Correct.
What if she decided to make it, she took that 5 acres away, or whatever, decided to subdivide it sort of acre by acre? I'm concerned about the actually being incentive. She put on.
Is there water and sewage involved, or is it septic?
She has water and sewage, but she only has one, she has a house.
Well, then they would have to put in more water and sewage, and there would be an impact fee. Per lot.
So she's looking at the cost of
Mhm.
7,000 plus,
No, where is it located?
more Charleston.
It'd be $5,600 a piece, $5,580, I think.
Plus whatever cost it is to.
Plus what it costs to do it.
Smart hydrants and everything else.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah. You can figure it's gonna be around $31,000 a lot. That's what it was, I had one price to retire. Yeah, so and that's because all the lots were on one side of the street. If they were on both sides of the street, they could have cut that in half.
I just asked Millard to address these things in the contract, because when I review these contracts coming in, these are things that people just, they leave them blank, they don't put anything, or it's just, seems to be a lot of confusion about what to do with it. And then I find that most agents don't have a clue what rollback taxes are.
And she knows, since I don't make any mistakes in my contract. 24, special study areas, wetlands, and environmental matters. Typically selling a lot, for example, you're gonna have a plat that already has all that done, where they've done all the wetland delineation. And I would put NA in here each time if it's on a lot. It's one of those that it's hard to answer that question because it depends on the piece of property. If it's a development tract, for example, then he's probably already done a wetland delineation, and he might can turn it over to the buyer. If he hasn't, it's going to be expensive, depending on the tract of land, but it's going to be expensive. They're going to have to hire somebody to go in and mark all the wetland areas off, and then go back behind and survey it, as well as doing another boundary survey on it. Plus, they'll end up having to do a tree survey. So, if it's a large tract of land, it needs a little bit more investigating and find out what the seller has to provide. If it's a knowledgeable seller, he's probably already had all that done because it increased the value of his property. But if it's a lot, typically it's on the plat. If it's not, you're not going to have to go in and do any kind of wetland delineation on something that's already been developed.
Now, the wetland delineation, you have to have a Corps of Engineers involved in that at some point.
The Corps of Engineers goes in and signs off on it after
you've done it.
Yeah.
What, you said wetlands, I know, like, you know, even over in, what's the subdivision behind us? Where we live? Where you used to live? Lower Lakes, thank you. There's wetlands, some of those lots in there, they have wetlands behind them. There's just nothing to be done with.
Correct.
And that's a subdivision that's up there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you couldn't do a Laurel Lakes today, because that was, the only reason they got by with that is because, was it Gordon?
Gordon Garden.
Went in there and did a dirt pit, and dug those lakes and used that dirt to build up in, on the high areas, but you wouldn't be able to do a project like that today. It was done years past, and that's how it got by. And the same with the other one down Rifle Range, it has all the canals running through it.
Hidden Lakes.
Yes. And you wouldn't be able to get by with anything like that today.
Why is that?
Because the rules are being changed. Continually they're being changed. And,
For protected.
protected, right, correct.
Is it, this is the time to talk about the critical lines on lots, talking about lots and stuff, but the lot backs up to any salt, water, wetlands.
Well,
You have to know what the critical line is.
and you're gonna have to go on the county site to find out what it is, because it's being continually changed. Just to give you an example, on Folly Beach a few years ago, it was 5 feet. They've now extended it to 15 feet. And I know in the country, it's gone from 50 feet to 75 feet before.
What system it is.
Yeah.
And the plat, if it's over 5 years old, the wetland delineation is over.
If the plat, you need to repeat that, 'cause I'm not sure.
If you have a plat of a lot in Hollywood, and that plat is over 5 years old, it shows a critical line delineation. then it is not valid. When you go to draw your building permit, they will make you reestablish at least the critical line, if not the whole darn thing. But at least the critical line, every 5 years. So whatever you do it before 5 years. Much the same as with septic, you have a 5-year window. Do it in 5 years. That's not to say they'll take it away from you. It just means they want to
So if you're saying that a critical line, it probably backs up to anything that's got salt water in it. That's what you have to worry about the critical line? Or is it backs up anything that's marsh or water?
Well, critical line is normally saltwater, brackish water. Ponds are generally considered, which is Coastal Council, which is Army Corps of Engineers. But the differences, the setback differences are different. For instance, it's like 125 on critical and it's 75 on pond. There are things you can do with a pond you cannot do with critical. If it's critical, it's just like they took the property.
So anything.
Wetlands and critical are not necessarily the same thing. I had a little piece on Waterloo loaded with wetlands, none of which are critical.
And they have what's jurisdictional and non-jurisdictional on that well. So, I mean, that's just another whole session.
Changes with every court case that the Corps loses, because they're constantly trying to do more with it in Myrtle Beach so they can develop. So they constantly are suing the Corps with what is a wetland, and if the Corps loses, then they rechange everything. For instance, the Corps used to say, you can excavate anything you want out of a wetland. You cannot put so much as a grain of sand into a wetland. So if you took the backhoe and you pulled the dirt out, you couldn't reach the truck. And you had to split it there and then pick it up again. That's for the wetlands. Taking it out is not. That was last year. Now, one thing Millard just kind of skipped over, but I really want to stress as a regulator, it shows there's not much of one. We meet every afternoon at 4 o'clock to change the rules. So everything you've been listening to about what you can do and what is 50 feet, what's 100 feet, and what requires this and what requires that can change on a dime. You've got to stay up on it.
So he's a role to try to get calls. He's a role to try to get a call to this property. Is there somebody I can call to get help with?
Well, really call the government, because the government stays up on it. Well, they're supposed to. Also, if you deal with Charleston County, and it might be true in others, I know Charleston County has a site review. It's on Wednesdays, you get a half hour. You get the planning board, you get DHAT, you get the roads and drainage guys. All they ask for is a site plan to scale what you want to do. Okay? And they'll take it apart. They'll even give you a written response to it in a timely fashion, free.
Where is it, Charleston County?
Charleston County. I'm not saying that Mount Pleasant doesn't. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it.
Well, now,
Andrea,
if they,
Andrea, but the other one is the total crack total.
Could they use that against you?
What do you mean?
Oh, well, if they deny you something and you haven't got an expert to come in and help you or something, it's written down, it's in your file, that property file, and once you've done that.
It is, after you've met with them.
Yeah. So it's not always wise to rush in with it.
Well, but what you want to do is you want to go in and find out what they're going to recommend to the planning commission.
Okay.
That's what I do. And if they say we're going to recommend that they don't do it, I don't move any farther forward.
Mhm.
Because the planning commission, I sat on the planning commission 6 years and we did what was recommended or not recommended, was how we voted. So there's no point in moving forward and trying to fight it.
So remember too, the only thing they denied was your first plan.
Right.
They didn't turn
No,
down
secondary.
your second alternate plan, because if they said it won't fly, it ain't flying. So you need to move something over, back something up, change something, twist something, resubmit. A lot of times they'll tell you, they won't design, but they sometimes will help you by saying, if you slide this over, that would probably work. And some of them are better to work with than others. That's
And variances. Is that where the variances come in, or is it later when you?
It's later, a whole different group. Whole different group. Now, I went to Charles, I got a piece of property that, I'm getting ready to put another building on John's Island. And it was long and narrow, and there was an easement going to the piece behind it. And I was gonna end up with this little skinny building. And I went in and spoke to him before I closed, and the lady told me, she said, go down the hall to so-and-so and so-and-so. She said, I believe they'll go ahead and give you a written variance on this because it's so ridiculous. I mean, I was gonna end up with like a 24 by 80 foot long building. And so they gave me a 15-foot variance to make the building decent. And they did it, before it even closed, I had it in writing that I would be allowed to do it. So, and that was with a meeting, I didn't have to even go in.
What was that with the town or with?
That was with Charleston County on Main, it's on Main Road on John's Island.
Well, if Charleston County says yay and Mount Pleasant says nay, what happens?
Well, Charleston County doesn't have any jurisdiction over what Mount Pleasant has. They have the jurisdiction.
But you're still in Charleston County,
So it
but
doesn't matter, you come under Mount Pleasant
Mount Pleasant,
jurisdiction.
Charleston.
So this piece was in the county, it hadn't been annexed into the city of Charleston yet, so that's why I went to the county.
So we really need to start everything off with the city, because it's city limits.
It is considered.
And disregard the county.
One thing they have now, they have the Mount Pleasant overlay districts, and the Mount Pleasant overlay districts, kind of go together, so the county and town is working together in Mount Pleasant overlay district. So even though you're in a little donut pocket hole, you can be in the Mount Pleasant overlay district. So it's important to make sure of that, because they're really are trying to work together on those areas.
Okay.
So come back for a second, because I think what most of the agents would be involved with, for the most part, is selling an individual lot, or selling a house, selling a lot that they want to build something up on the back of, that backs up to any kind of salty water, like actually river, it's not the ocean, but it's salt water. So they need to know about, the critical line could be a real important thing to know about.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's one of those questions that he got to say that they meet at 4 o'clock, so you need to find out what on that plat at that particular time.
That's the point I need you to know.
Yeah.
Is there a site that we can stay up on? It's like,
They don't keep up with it.
they don't,
My stepson got in big trouble in the town of Somerville, went on their site, and his engineer went on the site. And he spent about $30,000 having some lots designed, the water, the sewage and all that. Took it down to have it approved to get their permit to begin construction, and they changed all the rules. And even their engineer said, I got this off of your site. And they told him, well, we don't keep our site up to date. You need to meet with us on a regular basis.
Is this the critical line something, I won't be harping on this, but I know it's come up several times that agents always asking me so. Is this critical line something that like, they could hire you to go out and establish the critical line?
Surveyor.
A surveyor, not you.
Actually, it would be Jeff Goff.
He can do it too. Some surveyors are certified to do it and they're cheaper, and then there's a real live wetland survey guy that you can hire cheap, it's a little more expensive. But either one, as long as the surveyor says I can do it, and he's willing to sign his name, it's the biggie. He hands you something without his seal on it.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? Can we avoid all of this by making sure that we get the building permit? Like, if we know that we have the building permit, we know that everything is okay. Like, if we get the
You
permit.
could, but it takes, I mean, it's not something that's done overnight.
Right,
If you started today, you've got to find the guy to draw the plans.
right,
Well, you know he's going to take 45 days to do that. Then it's got to go, in our situation, it's got to go through the architectural review board
right.
at Stone Oak Ferry. They're probably going to keep it for 45 or 60 days. And you know they're going to make a change on it because they're not going to like the shutters or something. So it's going to have to go back to the drawing board again. It'll be 6 months before it's ready to get the building permit.
You don't, it's in a rural area, if you don't have a septic permit, they will not accept the building permit application. It's like, first you give us this, then you give us that.
but it is a safe way to go, right?
It's a safe way to go, if you can get a seller to agree to that. In this market, I just can't see a seller agreeing to do something like that. Okay.
You have a permission to do that.
What I did was, I had somebody call me about a piece of property yesterday morning that was for sale, and I thought it was a pretty good buy. It was 85 acres for $126,000. And it was out, above the UG area. So the first thing I did was, after I got the tax map number, was I went and I pulled up the aerial of the property. And just to look at the property. Does anybody know what you can see about this piece of property just from the aerial? Well, what I see is the property's been timbered. All the way around the line, you can tell that the property was timbered. And it's been, looks like it was clear cut, except possibly through this area, or this area, which we're going to see that, no, that's a wetland area instead. See how I can see this wet area here? But it's still, you can still tell that it was clear cut, because you've got all this U.S. forestry property around it. You see what I'm talking about this line running here?
Are you saying the line was already there? Like somebody already put the line there?
Well, no, what I'm saying, can you see the difference in the texture, in the way that looks?
Yeah.
Now, why would they, if they timbered all that, I see red lines, I'm assuming that's the boundary.
That's what I'm talking about.
Why do they, it's kind of like they stopped the timber short of that property. Why would they do that?
Well, what I found out a little bit later with the phone call was it was poached. This was owned by a dentist who's passed away, and he's given this land to MUSC, and they're selling the property to go to the cancer section of the hospital. And someone has gone in there and stolen all this timber off this property. But anyway, back to what I was getting at. This is part of it also. This piece looks like it's landlocked, but it's a different tax map number, but it's a piece of it also. But if it wasn't a piece of it, you see that you've got access from here coming in. This piece is landlocked. So if that was the piece I was pulling up, and I saw that it had no legal access to it, I would move on. I just wouldn't even proceed any. I mean, it's a nightmare to try to get access to a piece of property. I did another piece in UG several years back, and it took me 5 years. I had to, first thing I had to do was file a lawsuit against 3 adjoining property owners that had already denied me access. And go in front of the judge. The judge had to do an appraisal of their properties to figure out what the square footage would be for the access to the property, and then he chose the property owner with the shortest distance. And it took 5 years to do it. The only reason I bought the property was because I picked it up for like $10,000, and so I was able to hold on to it for 5 years and not worry about having a bunch of money tied up while I was clearing it. Back to this piece of property. If I wanted to move forward on this piece of property, the next thing I would want to do is find out whether it was going to perk. So what I would do is I would go on the GIS site, and he knows how to, which is actually the same site we were just on, but you scroll down and click on the soils. And that gives you the soils that are on that property, where the federal government went in years ago, and every 100 feet or something, they punched holes. How'd they do that?
It was every 300 or 400 feet. They did it about 4 years ago.
40.
I think it's been about 4 years.
Yeah. And, but here's the same piece of property. Now, we saw that there's a legend on this that tells you the descriptions on the piece of property. And this piece is really kind of an interesting piece because it's deceiving, because this blue actually means that it's the soils that are wetland soils. And this craven is the same thing. It's normally a wetland soil. This gold typically is what they're looking for when they go in and do the auger to get your perk site. But then what is really strange, if we went back to that last one, this area shows up and goes on, where the Bayboro, soil was, on the aerial, looks like a wetland area. So, but it's the first piece that you have to start to investigate. And from the aerial, to me, because I've been doing it for a bunch of years, this is where I would start. And the reasoning Tim brought up earlier, where do people build their roads and the easiest place to get to the property? The highest section. So you start along the edge of that to try to find something. But
What's in all that purple?
all that purple, if we had clicked back, all the way back to the back to where the legend was, there's a description of what these colors are, and the breakdown is, that purple is called St. John's. And St. John's is it tells you what the moisture content is, how it absorbs water if you pour it in. Between you and I, it's black, thick muck.
So I can't build there, is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm just telling you not to get a perk site there.
I have to build, is that what you're?
Now, I don't trust that from looking back at that aerial, though. I don't trust that. So I called this guy. And Tim is an ex-DHEC employee, and so he now has a soil consulting company. He goes out there and he will find the site for me.
To find what site? Perk.
A perk site. And the reason I'd be looking at it, suppose he found multiple perk sites for me. Well, I've got my entrance here, it's 126 feet wide. To come in to do lots, you only need 50 feet. If you found one here, and you found one back there, and you found one back there, well, this property's been clear cut and timbered. To me, that would mean it'd be good equestrian property. Go in and clear all the stumps that are left over, all that, and cut up little 10-acre pieces in there. So,
I thought when you showed that other slide, that showed a lot of wetlands back there. That one, that showed all that white space.
shows the wetland. But if he were able to go in and get these perk sites, that's not going to affect me putting horses on that piece of property.
True. But you could do a perk site on the wetlands area?
If you can find one.
No.
Let me tell you what he just did to me last week. This is what Tim did to me last week. This is some lots, a little thing that, Steve Wilkinson next to you.
Yeah.
Steve and I bought this property about a year and a half ago. It was 15 acres. It was just a long, slender piece that went back. Well, it was so thick when we went in to get our perk sites, we could only find perk sites up in the front because you couldn't tell really where we were on the property, because we were walking through a situation like that with an aerial in our hand. We got these 3 approved. We got this one approved for that tank system, which is that above ground. You can just tell them what it is in a second. And then on the back lot back here, and which is over 5 acres, it's got on our plat unbuildable because we couldn't find a perk site on it. So I said, all right, this will just be a little recreational piece of property that I'll use later on. Well, we've sold this lot, and I've got contracts on these 2, and I've got this one under a lease-to-own situation, but the tank system was like $15,000, and they weren't going to buy it. I had Tim go back in there on the property to try to find another site, find out how to get around that $15,000 septic system. And what he did, the way the road comes in around these trees, this property is useless over here anyway. So he found the drain fill up here, and the tank's going to be down here. So I'm doing an easement along the edge of the road anyway, and running up there, it brings it back down to about $5,000, and so the people are moving forward with the contract. In the meantime, he found me a perk site right here, which now means that this piece of property is a $120,000 piece of property that I can sell, because it's now buildable. And he did it for $500.
What is the perk site again? Is that just a solid piece of ground?
Kind of sorry.
Question was the perk site, because I don't think people could hear what you said.
Okay, septic system. It's going to be hard to keep your attention on the septic system. I could probably talk about changing your granddaughter's diapers and get more attention. Staying there. The septic system is do two things. Get rid of the water, obviously, and to treat the water. And this is where things get sticky. They tell us we're drinking the same water the dinosaurs did, so they're not making any more, so we've got to take pretty decent care of it. So when DHEC goes out, what they're looking for is a bacteria condo, because the bacteria are what's going to treat the soil. Okay? As it goes down through, they're going to munch halfway away. By the time it gets through a foot or two of them, then you basically got yourself something it's okay. Okay, you can drink it at that point, but it's still going to work out all right. So now what DHEC is looking for is an area big enough with enough of that on it. When you look at a drain field, and the drain field is 200 linear feet, so you've got 5 or 6 lines sitting there in soil that they have determined that it's likely that there will be a bacteria colony underneath it enough to treat the soil, treat the sewage with the effluent. What they find, the smart people up in North Carolina that do all the research for us, is they find that if the soil is saturated for 21 days or more, it's too saturated to support the bacteria. So we're not going out there with microscopes and looking for bacteria. We're looking for evidence that they're there. If you watch CSI lately, you know you just go for the evidence. You don't necessarily have to see the crime. So what you're looking for is something there that you can see in the field that's going to indicate that there's going to be enough suitable area for the bacteria to be in. Yes, sir.
So that particular point that he showed us on the map, he said this section was perk siteable.
No, I said that would be the first decent section of the property that I would start to look for it because of the type of soil.
Right, but he granted that big, long piece, that $120,000 piece. We found a certain section of that particular piece that you could put a septic in.
Yeah, correct. We found it there, it wasn't designated. They didn't find it. Right. I didn't create it. This is natural, God, whatever you want to believe. Okay?
But only that little section.
But yes, in this particular case, that little section. And the second issue we had was, where's the property line? Which is a huge issue in the woods. Because you can go nuts looking all over the place, as we kind of did. But we really found gold, only to find that we were almost off the property. We really established where his line was. We were a little bit lucky to have enough left over, strip, long and narrow. The DHEC offers a number of different systems, so we were able to work with that. So,
to the question, if you said firm land, that means you put the septic tank on.
Explain to him how you go in and perk a piece of farm to get a septic permit.
DHEC, we use the same thing. We're going to go out with a soil auger, which is a 2-inch, 4-inch tool, and we're going to go. And we're going to look for evidence. Evidence, when you look at it, you take sand, dirt, rub it all off. What's left in your hand is a little bit of sand, a little bit of silt, and a little bit of clay. That's all there is to soil. The difference really in that is that sand is a beach ball, silt is a volleyball, and clay is a ball. Okay? So these are the things that you look for. Clemson is for clay. So the water's not going to go through that section of marbles very easily versus all of those beach balls. So to compensate for that, you have to have a much bigger system, much longer drain lines going through a much more impervious material, which takes longer. So you might have 1,000 feet of drain field in Clemson, and you might have 150 here. If you go to Folly Beach and you've got a 75 on 150 foot lot, and you've got a 5-bedroom house plus setbacks, and you still get a septic system and the recovery on it. Why? Because sand is very forgiving. The sand is very large particles, and the water can go through very easily.
So when you say septic, you're talking about water runoff, or that
Water dispersal,
not necessarily waste.
drain field, same thing. You're going to have a septic tank, okay? And what the tank does is it has a certain variety of bacteria in the tank. They're going to start the munching process. Yes, it's also filtered. It clears out stuff out of the pipes so that you can get it out of there quickly. So you got this process of breakdown going on in the tank. About half of it happens. Then you send it out into the soil. for two reasons. One, you get rid of the water, but two, there's a different process going on, natural process going on. Then they continue to much until between the two, we've rendered sewage out of all of our bodies pretty much harmless. And as it continues to go down through the soil, continues to get some munching going on. And the bacteria that's in the tile field requires air.
See, my way of thinking back to your question, you know, if you're only looking for a septic, I don't think it's a tank. If, you know,
Or is it
water
system?
run, because I can run pipes in the sewer through there and not have to worry about it. I'm my way off base, let's say.
You're way off if they don't have sewage.
No, but what I'm saying is if you had sewer, don't.
You don't have to worry about it.
What do I care about perking?
You don't. Move on.
Yeah, you want
You're
to
not getting it, we're going with this. They're public sewer national parks. There's no sewage within 25 miles probably.
If you're exclusively, you know, working with established subdivisions, you know, you can leave. It's because there's nothing I'm gonna tell you that makes a bit of difference. You couldn't care less. Okay? But if you ever wind up doing this, now you care. Okay? Because now you have to find septic site. A septic site around figures, it's gonna be about 100 feet by 100 feet. Okay, about that big. I tell people, say maybe 4 double-wide mobile homes, okay, in size, to give them something that they can actually see. In the 3-bedroom, we use less water than a 4-bedroom than a 5-bedroom. He had figures that each person takes 60 gallons per day, so 1 bedroom is 120, 2 bedrooms 240, so on and so forth. And so they designed the system for that. A lot of times I hear Millard tell me, well, it's a conventional, it's an alternative, it's this, it's that. Try not to get hung up on DX terminology. Once again, they'll change it. They've already changed it numerous times. All you care about really, is it a normal system? The normal system is you dig the trench, you put the rock and pipe in, you put some dirt back over it, normal system. And the reason the normal system is nice is because the setbacks are only 5 feet from everything except water in any form, pond, critical, well, you name it. But other than that, it's 5-foot setback. That means you can get a much smaller lot in a septic pond. If the water table is shallow, then you're forced to do a shallow system. You only dig it like 6-7 inches deep. You put the pipe and the water in there, and then you have to bring dirt from somewhere else and cover it. Now you have what's called a mound. It's going to be a foot tall. The problem with a mound is if you've got 3 septic lines, now you have to be 20 feet all the way around those 3 lines to get your cover cap to seal it and keep it inside. So now you've got 20, so it's 20, you've got 40 plus the system, plus 40 this way in the system. So now you went from 5-foot setbacks on a small system to 40 feet in 2 directions. And now it's much more difficult to get it on the lot when you're talking relatively small lot. To me, a small lot is anything under 1 acre. If you've got an acre or more, we got a good fighting chance. If not, now it gets tough. Third thing is an engineered system. One thing you can figure on is no matter what, unless you have no room to work with, or unless it's absolutely a wetland, you will get a permit. But it's sort of like justice, is how much can you afford? So the system is going to run you 15 if you're lucky, 20,000 if you're not. If you're talking about something up here, you'll never sell the lot. If you're talking Folly Beach and it's $1 million lot, who cares? Bring on the engineer. The engineered system can be one of 2 things. One, they simply excavate the soil, they build it up, and then they put the pipes and all in that. Why is that any different than before? It's because they created a dry section for the bacteria condo artificially. Okay, and then they cover it. So the other system is a micro treatment facility. It's literally a little plant that you build down there, and it has aerators and everything else. It looks like a space shuttle when you see all the electric controls on it to make it work. Very complicated. It's a pain in the butt to maintain it. The other thing you can consider as agents, you don't have to build the system. You just have to get the permit if you want to have the lot with a permit when you sell it. The permit of an engineer is typically $3,500. So you don't have to spend that $20,000 if you don't want to. Okay, this lot is only good for an engineer. The seller has already gotten it for you. Here it is. And so there's $3,500 there. Let's say it's a $100,000 lot. Typically what I hear is the seller discounts it another $5,000. So that means he's got $8,500 in it out of $18,500, so that's $10,000 over here. So it's kind of like a 50-50 deal. If the property's pretty, if it's good, if it's on the water, if it's on the beach, then, go for it. There's nothing wrong with it. Yes, ma'am.
If it's a wooded lot, how would you go about getting the internet system? You have to get on the roots out first, or can you just take the lines in between the roots?
Well, you're going to have to take out some. When I talked about water, I should have included Grand Oaks. They're as bad as water because the county's not going to take them out. You're going to have to work around them. They normally let you go down one side of them because they figure if you cut the roots off of roughly 1/3, you look the round thing and you cut it about 1/3 of the roots, it should survive. If you go 2 or 3 ways, you go down this side and this side very close and cut all the roots and trees in big trouble, and I don't want to do that. Normally, you're going to take out some of the trees. You will. No doubt about that. The other issue you have is to physically install it. How are you going to get the backhoe in there? How are you going to get the rock in there? How are you going to get it from the road, back behind this house, without providing a way to do it? So there's structural issues you have to consider too. I call myself yellow gold because yellow gold is the best you can get. Each little grain of sand has iron around it. That's just normal for this part of the country and many other parts of the country. If you live in Yellowstone, there you go. It's just iron around the rock beds. In this case, you can see the sand. When it gets wet, that iron bond can be broken, chemically. And when it does that, it's free to move. It doesn't pack a suitcase and go to California. It just moves a little bit, 1/4 inch or something. And all of a sudden, you've got where it was, is now gone, and it's moved over to someplace else. In school, they teach you think of M&M. You lift the M&M. What have you got left? Brown piece of candy. Where's the color coding? On the tongue. So, what happens is, it will look somewhat like this piece of candy. Okay? The gray is where the iron was. It is moved. It is now turned red again because they found some oxygen in the soil. In between those grains, the leach soil, there's plenty of air in there. So what did it do? Rusted. So it can be very easily seen. And this is pretty graphic here, but it gives you the idea. And the reason I like this piece of candy is because it shows long lines. What I like to see is warring soldiers, the gray army and the red army. When I see that, I know that the water's in there long enough to cause this action to be in the soil that I can see, and I know that I will not be alive, and that anyone in this room will be alive when it reverts back, because once done, it's permanent. It's a permanent anything the earth is. So this is the reason you could not care less whether it rained last week. You could not care less whether you go left or anything else. Because this is the result of saturation over a long period of time. And this is why they use that. So when he digs down there and he sees this, he says, okay, there it is. But there's a ruler down there and he measures. You guys, 21 inches is a magic number. And then once when you get the drink. So that's easy to do. So 21 inches is when it becomes a normal system versus something that has to have a third of fill. So anytime he tells you 21 inches greater, that means you're in a much smaller system, and much less fast. So that's kind of what you're hoping for.
So if it's less than 21 inches, you have the normal system.
It's a normal system. It's a fill cap system. Between 12 and 21 is a fill cap system. The fill cap requires much more room. You guys don't really care about any of this except how much room is it gonna take on my lot? Can I get this smaller lot to work? Can I get a house on it? Can I get the 50-foot county setback on it? Can I get my driveway on it? Can I get a septic system on it? All of that required. Can I get a 50% recovery as required and still be off the property?
So if I have to engineer a cap, I can't use that to build my concrete slab.
No seconds.
That's gotta stay.
Let me finish with this. If you use a cap, right, okay, what I always tell people to do is don't panic, don't worry about is it an ugly cap. Extend the cap underneath your house. Build yourself a 1-foot pad and simply blend it into the septic system. Put your house on that, your setback, and no one will ever know it's there. It just looks like it's supposed to. Yes, sir.
So our takeaway as realtors, I mean, I just had someone, I showed a lot Monday or last Thursday out in Hollywood. And it was all wooded, narrow little place off of, the little river right there on the right side of 17. And she's asking me, oh, how about this? Can I put this on there? Can I do this? Like she's gonna buy it tomorrow. So my takeaway from this is, anybody asking for vacant land, tell them we got 6 months.
No.
Because it's gonna take that long for you to even do any surveys, to do any engineering lot, plat.
This was a whole different, this was sort of here, on a situation like that, all you've got to do is go down and pay the $150, you could hire him, get him to go out there and do it, and he can go out and find the system and walk the permit through. He got my last one for me in 7 or 10 days.
What you need is a plat. If it hasn't been surveyed, you have no plat, you got a
It's been
problem.
surveyed in this particular case.
You need the survey because if you go to DHEC and say, oh, here's my little sketch, this is what I want. It doesn't matter where you put the house, stick it someplace reasonable, okay? But when he goes out there, if he can't find the corners, he's gonna turn around and go home. You're gonna pay another $150 before he goes back out there. Whatever you do, take care of the property corners of their gold as they are. I tell people, take PVC poles. The lows are up and a half, cut them in half. It's forever. And put those in there, especially if you got any work being done near it or around it. Okay, keep those property markers there. If you want to, just make a sketch, fill out the forms, put $150 in there, send it out to DF.
And that's for a sewer.
That's for your septic permit.
So
But then you also have tree survey. You also have,
It only gets you one thing.
there's a bunch of things that you gotta do before you
The
can
United
actually
States
decide.
of America. Welcome to
Yeah,
Permit City.
I agree, but it's not, it's hard to say when, person is coming to us saying, yeah, I'm thinking about buying. Well, we should have a laundry list of things and point to them and say, we need to go here, there, before you should have them, you know, guesstimate of what you're actually spending.
Most contractors have that list. I mean, you know, when they're looking the land, they say you gotta do this. I think he's talking about before you even get to it.
Before you even make an offer, is this thing really worth $50,000?
The area that he's talking about, I call it this, the area he's talking about, you know, we got people coming to us saying, we don't find all Hill, Harleyville, Avenel, well, Jennifer's done all the issue, but, Bonnet, these are areas that we're out there doing people.
But we should be advising them that, yeah, can it take certain things to happen before you'll have something that you bought some land and you said it took 5 years to make some change.
Well, it's landlocked, but
Well, that one was a little more obvious.
The due diligence, I think, is what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's
What do we,
what
how do we inform buyers if they're looking at property? What kind of due
We should
diligence?
easily be able to put you some sort of a basic checklist. That basically, you're talking about zoning, talking about DHEC, and that's
Well, and before you need to do that, you need to know what their usage is gonna be, so that you know what to do.
Yeah, if it's residential, they say, you know, they come and say, I want to build a house.
My average guy is, I'll go out, country, I want to build a house.
Well, then they just need to get the septic tank, a septic permit.
And a survey, make sure you don't have.
Right.
Well, if I have a
If they've got
plot-
property for sale, they've got a survey. If they don't, they need to spend the money if they want to sell.
Well, I mean, the oaks.
Tree survey.
Tree survey, right.
You don't have to do the tree survey if you were not developing a piece of property. Now, when you go, you apply for a building permit, they gotta make sure you don't have any grand trees where you want to place your house. But,
That's part of the due diligence, you would say, yeah, if you got a big old grand oak sitting there, or a white oak sitting in the middle, you can't build on it, then, yeah, why are you buying the land?
One thing you might be able to do is try and talk them into taking 4 stakes and say, where would you put your house? You and me, you walk around, I'll put here, 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 here. And you can say, well, you see that grand oak in the middle of your house? They will not let you cut it down.
I really don't know what one looks like today.
This thing around 4 feet, 24 inches in diameter. So if you want to do the math, the 3.14 times 24 gives you approximately 75 inches if you wrap the ruler around a tree.
All oaks aren't,
Absolutely not. Very few are. The chest high, 4 feet, if you wrap the ruler around it, it's approximately 75 inches. So we can do like that and go with that 24.
So if I got a 24-inch oak, I can take it down.
If it's a 20-inch oak.
So if I have a
It's
land
on-
plot, okay, I have a client, I have an acre land in that plot. And we need perk to buy, that's part of our due diligence. If I have a plot, all I do is call you up, pay you fee, you come out to the company. Whether or not it's like.
he's gonna find the site and walk the permit to DHEC. DHEC still has to come out and prove it. He's an ex-DHEC employee, but
Okay, now what does that cost?
I'm an expediter. All I'm gonna do is come out and look. And if it looks reasonable to me, I'm gonna say, I think you should proceed. So it'll cost you $150 more. Okay, if I come out and I look around and I tell you, this is ridiculous, I don't think you should waste your money. It's up to you.
Okay, so I'll pay you $150 next time.
Okay, you have $150. You'll pay me $375 to $4.25 for my services. You're gonna pay DHEC $150, no matter what. If I come out there and it's dog manure, then I just say, you know, I need lunch and gas money and call me again. You know, I charge the success.
Okay, so basically I'll tell my clients it's gonna cost about $600.
In round figures, yes.
And we try to get 15 to 30 day due diligence, so we can get a bunch of people in there.
It's almost impossible to do less than 30 days.
yeah, I would stick to the 30 business days. Stick to the 30 business days because he can't tell you just because he wants to go out tomorrow, the DX could be there next week. So it's been my experience, but he can't tell you that, and DX can't
So
tell
my
you
due
that.
diligence is what, 30 days?
I don't know if you heard, but he said if you call him and he goes out and he's successful, you pay him the $375 or whatever. But if he's not successful, you buy his lunch.
Right.
Basically, that's all. Okay.
But
And you save $150 for DHEC.
it would still save money, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm going into this thing like.
Well, I'm going with you. You're going in this to make money. I'm going in this to make money. If I can't get a permit, you don't get paid, and I don't do very well either. So we take our dog rags and we move to the next block. How many of you have ever something collapse on you?
So
Everyone.
So the next question is, do you work in all counties? Just
So I can work mostly in all counties. I don't work especially in Charleston County. That's where I work in the
I'm assuming handle business one.
I can handle business.
And let me tell you something, the reason, you can spend that $150 regardless of DHEC. And that guy works with, I'm sorry, but he works with the government. He's gonna walk out there, he's gonna punch a hole here and a punch a hole there, and if it doesn't do, he's gonna go back and get in his car, because the perspiration's starting to run down his face. And he's not, and if he didn't find a good site, you just lost out. And it's gonna cost you $150 for him to go back. That's why it's worth the time to get him to going out. And
You tell this man to check this lot, he will say, where? Because you're gonna put a house site on this lot. And if you guess wrong, he punches 3 or 4 around the house site, he goes home. It's not his job to explore this property, it's my job. And that's the big difference. I'm the one that gets the ticks and mosquitoes and sweat, because I'm the one trying to help you get this through the first time. Snake bites?
Yeah.
You get snake bites too? I never really do that. What I do is I try and put a package together that's so dirt simple, easy, that they will fight for it out of the pile because they get paid just as much or easy one as they do a hard one, and they'll do it. Now, can you tell any difference between the two yellows? Probably not much. But DHEC uses a color chart called the Munsell chart. And it has 5 lines on it. 1, 2 are bad, 3, 4, and 5 are good. It starts with white and black, beach, swamp, and it turns into grays. When you get to the 3, 4, 5, it starts to turn into browns and yellows. You go all the way over here, it's a beautiful yellow, gold, bronze color. Oh my God, gold. But between 2 and 3, it can be just like this. And I tell everybody, when you get 3 DHEC agents out there, you're going to get 4 opinions. Okay? The second thing they're going to do is called CYA. Okay? If they sign on the dotted line saying that that lot is a lot, then they are now on the hook personally, not just the government, but they are on the hook personally as well. But they're already scared to death before they ever arrive. So that's some of the reasons why it's difficult to get them to do things, because it's somewhat an exact science, and it can be marginal. It can be difficult to do.
Like crazy, 400 bucks, she's all done, she needs to start out here. That's it, I'm walking away.
In your case, yeah, once you take me out, you hand the DHEC check, you hand the plat, you take it to the job site, and you say, my guy was probably I could be somewhere over here. You go home, you wait for mail. In this case, email, if there's some mail they want. And the person you get is a receipt saying they accepted the job, that's the thing you'll get the permit. And if we meet out there, and I tell you, it's crap. They tell us. When you walk out, or you drive out here, okay, and then you park on this road because you're going to check. This is your drive. You're going to check. The first thing they do when they put us all in these classes, and they run us out there in these vans, and they say, pull off the road and look. What do you see? Does the road go up, down? Do you see big trees? Do you see ditches? Do you see lakes? Do you see ponds? Do you see hills? What do you see? Open your eyes. As real estate agents, I would think it'd be so easy to say, I just got a contract on this property. I think that'll be 10 months. I'm going to be really great. Merry Christmas for me. But be honest. Open your eyes, go out, and take a real look at what you see. So you're going to drive down this road. Now, some of you are going to have your boots in your trunk and your long pants, and you want to go out. Some of you don't really want to do that. Right? Then drive down this road here and just take a good, hard look at what you really see. What's going above the ground, it's going to tell you what's going below the ground. You're not going to get wet living vegetation above the ground without mighty wet down below. If you arrive on this road and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to go ahead and look in here a little bit. If you see an impenetrable wall of vines and myrtles and God knows what all else, it would take a machete or a bulldozer to go through it. Why is it like that? Because it's soaking wet. Because the vegetation has all the water and the sunlight it needs to make this impenetrable barrier. So you're in trouble. As you drive along, try and look for wet-loving plants. Cabbage palms. You don't know cabbage palm, unfortunately, in the picture. But cabbage palms are an excellent indicator. Bamboo, excellent indicator. Gums, an excellent indicator. Ferns, an excellent indicator. If you see all the roots are going across the ground and you would stumble if you were to walk across them. Why? Because they're trying to keep their feet out of the water. It's just that simple. If you can walk, and let's say it's an open area, a little more open, it's easier to walk. Look for ants. Ants will tell you what's going on below the ground. If he's bringing out yellow gold, it's not. It's bringing out gray, black, dark browns, not a good day. So the answer, your friend, so watch for what they're doing. And of course, always watch for water and wetlands. If you see areas like this and you cut over to them and there's just, it really looks like there ought to be standing water in it, it probably is. It's just not there now. It's just bone dry right there now. One of the reasons it's hard, for instance, if Millard would have sent me an application and said, how quick can you get one of the guys up there in July? The first thing they're doing is they're all on vacation at any time left at all. And the second thing they're doing is they're dying out there because this is miserable work this time of year for us. So it's going to take much longer in July than it will in November. And the same guy could do twice as much work. Frankly, you really could do twice as much work. Swamp maples are another indicator. There's all kinds of maples. When you look north, you see maples growing up the mountains. That's a different variety, but it still has the maple leaf.
These are negative to buying the land. When you
It tells you that you have reasons to worry.
Yeah.
Okay? It's telling you that if you see a dominant amount of this, all I see are maples, all I see are cane, all I see is myrtles, I don't see anything redeeming. So I drive along back here. Let's just pretend it goes up. Well, bingo, all of a sudden I see large oaks, dogwoods, what I like to do. Dogwoods, hickory, wild cherry. These are dry-loving plants. Especially wild cherry is not that uncommon around here on a decent piece of ground. If you don't know what they look like, it might be worth your time, if you're going to do rural work, to look it up and figure out what it looks like. The bark, especially on wild cherry, is pretty easy to tell. Anybody knows what a live oak is, don't be confused with a water oak, etc.
So let's suppose I come out there and I realize there's one that looks like it's going to be one there. All right, and I bring my client out. My client says, "Man, I love this one. I want to buy it." I call you up and say, "Real firm." And you go out there and you say, "Well, you know what? You got a lot of that thing that I'm concerned about, etc." And first thing out of my clients now, because I'm trying to make a sale, so I'm going to tell my client, ask about backfill. He's going to ask you, who does he go to find out if you can backfill, fill that in?
No. Simple, 2 letters. As far as septic, no. Beyond septic, I don't care what he does as long as it's not designated a wetland. If you screw up a wetland, you're on your own. I tell you. But what I do is I go out and let's say over here, I get lucky. I find a septic site right there. And he says, but I want to be over here. Cool. Run your line, 2-inch PVC pipe, and pump it over there. I don't care. You can pump it all the way to Charles.
Here's my question.
If it's not a wetland, there's nothing stopping it.
There's no special permitting or anything.
Unless he's going to strip all the trees. Then you begin to get into a land clearance permit with, I think it's over 2 acres. If he goes in there and he just demolishes over 2 acres, he needs a land clearance permit. It's similar to a mining permit. Need to wrap it up?
Yeah.
There's really, is there a question? Let's start with that.
You want that?
Business cards in case you have some questions.
Just to let you know, that I can sympathize. Many years ago, I was involved in a development project. And we built the paved road, and we built water line, and we built sewer lines, and we fixed up all the land, and put in drain fields, not drain fields, but the water, because we were on public sewer. And we had it all going good. We paid all the engineering fees, we had all the approvals from the county. I have a collage of permits, wetlands, history and archives, wildlife, Indian mounds, you name it, I have. And 3 months before we would get our final approval, FEMA in the lab on computer, raised the flood elevation, right down our property.
Is anybody honest with that, with you on that? Or Amy? No. Oh. I
know that some of you, I know y'all got things to do, so this has been one of them.
Yes.
Thank you.